Now by Jess McIntosh, a spokesperson for Emily's List. Also, Ron Christie, former special assistant to President George W. Bush and columnist for the Daily Beast. Ron, given his family's legacy in Iraq, is this really where Jeb Bush wants to have a foreign policy debate?
Good evening, Doc. Yeah, I think it is. I think, unfortunately, this administration has never called terrorism what it is. We are waging war with Islamic jihadists that are trying to kill us. The president won't say that. Secretary of State wouldn't say that. And I think as we try to draw differences between the candidates who want to be the 45th president of the United States, I think Governor Bush is very wise to look at the foreign policy of this administration and draw distinctions of how he would lead versus how they've led.
Jess, in light of what Brother Christie just indicated there, Jeb Bush calls the withdrawal from Iraq a date which his own brother, George W. Bush, set a fatal mistake. That created a space for ISIS to grow. How does Clinton rebut those kinds of claims, and in light of what Mr. Christie has just indicated?
It seems very odd for Jeb to focus on the withdrawal from Iraq, the beginning of the withdrawal from Iraq, which was, of course, a date set by his brother. I think it is even odder for him to make this the focal point of his campaign right now. He floundered in the debate. He hasn't been able to recover from a few missteps about Americans needing to work harder and phasing out Medicare. So to turn to foreign policy, I think most Americans remember the Bush doctrine very well. They remember the 8 years that we had under Bush. They remember the cowboy diplomacy, and they are not looking at all for a return back to that. So I'm curious to see where, if in any place, Jeb distances himself from his brother's policies. The last time he was asked about it, he said even knowing now what we knew, even if he had known then what we know now, he still would have invaded Iraq, which is a position that nobody in the Republican Party holds any longer. This just seems like a very, very curious place for him to be going if he's trying to draw up support and attention right now.
Brother Christie, that. I mean, given the analysis that Jess has just offered, it does seem strange in light of his, some would argue, flip-flopping on this particular issue and the kind of weighted history that he brings to bear upon this, in the shadow of his brother and father, for that matter, and unable to escape that. Do you think this strategy of being critical of Clinton's record is a way to deflect some of the criticism from Bush's own record and the weight that he carries?
No. I mean, you're talking about someone who is a strong executive in Florida, someone who is a strong leader, someone who is, of course, the commander-in-chief of the Florida folks who are in the reserves. And, you know, to use the analogy of, well, he needs to get out of the shadow of his brother or his father, then we might as well say that we should never elect Hillary Clinton to be the next president of the United States, because she's going to be chasing interns around the Oval Office like her husband did. The logic of that is just ridiculous. And Jeb has a record. Jeb will run on his record. And I think he's looking at the foreign policy failures of this administration, the failure to secure the peace, the failure to stem ISIS, and the failure, of course, to negotiate a really strong strategy with our allies to defeat the Islamic jihadists that are trying to kill us. So I think, yeah, I think this is a great fight for Jeb to take.
Jess, Jeb Bush plans to go after Hillary Clinton for only going to Iraq once during her time as Secretary of State. Is that a legitimate or even a fair criticism?
I think a Bush standing on stage and saying that Iraq is the problem of President Obama and Hillary Clinton is going to be just as laughable to the audience who sees it tonight as it is to us right now. I think that 19 of 21 of Jeb's foreign policy advisors also belonged to his brother and his father. So the idea that this is somehow a good way to get out of their shadow and be his own man might require finding another family's Rolodex to consult some advice, because he's getting it from exactly the same people. And if he wants to differentiate himself, if he wants to say that some of what W did was wrong and this is how he would be different, I think those are fair questions to ask a presidential candidate. So far, he hasn't done any of that. He's simply turned his brother's failures around onto the president and to Hillary Clinton in a political ploy to give his campaign a little boost, because he's been lagging so badly, and America's going to see right through that.
Right. 20 seconds left. Ron Christie, what's your response?
George W. Bush won the war in Iraq. The surge worked. President Obama inherited a very stable region. The Obama administration and Secretary Clinton blew it, and now they have ISIS to blame. And
no one in a million years is going to believe that.
Oh,
it's just
I think everyone believes that, because it's the absolute truth, Jess. It really is.
Well, you were in the White House and I was protesting as a college student, so we're coming at it from very different perspectives. But I think a lot of Americans are with me.
All right. Jess McIntosh and Ron Christie, thank you so much for your time tonight and that vigorous debate.